So it's 6 o'clock now. To respect everybody's time, shall we get started, Rebecca?
Sounds good. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening to talk about how we can make the most of our online classes. So I'll start off by introducing myself and my co-host will introduce himself, and then we'll jump into why we're really here. So my name is Rebecca Bush. I'm the primary program director here at Baker & Bloom. I have been teaching for quite a while, over 12 years, 6 of which I've been here in Hong Kong. I'm originally from the US. I was a classroom teacher. I've trained teachers, developed curriculum. I've done a lot of stuff around education. I have 2 master's degrees in education. The first is in elementary education, but really with the focus in bilingual programs and that language acquisition process. And then my second is in advanced literacy. So I am a certified reading specialist. I'm also a certified special education teacher, classroom teacher, and bilingual instructor. And I've done over 200 hours of multisensory intervention training, which allows me to be a dyslexia therapist. So long story short, I've been in education for quite a while, and I really love teaching kids how to read. So I will hand it over to my co-host.
Thank you, Rebecca. So hi, everyone. I'm Min. I'm Executive Director at Baker & Bloom and also Bloom Academy. At Baker & Bloom, I also work as an admissions counselor. So I take on just a few students a year who are applying for a university, usually in the US, but also UK and Canada. I'm also head of admissions and marketing for Bloom Academy, a brand new primary and secondary school. I went to Yale, where I studied psychology and was also part of the Yale teacher preparation program. And I did my doctorate in education at Hong Kong U, focusing on student motivation, so engaging students in their learning, because we know that if they're not engaged, they're not learning. In terms of my teaching experience, I've taught both younger ones like 5th grade, math and science in Los Angeles, and also older ones, English literature and writing at CUHK. Other than teaching, I've also done a lot of teacher training. And again, back to my doctoral topic of student engagement and project-based learning. And I've done that in various places around the world. And one of my qualifications, if you will, for this talk is that I've created a 120-hour digital teacher certification course. And there I had to think about how do we engage teachers in the online space and how do we train teachers to engage their students in the online space. So done a lot of thinking over the past few years about learning online. And I've worked as an interviewer at the Yale College admissions office. So that's how I am now helping students who are applying to colleges in the US. That's a little bit about me. I'll pass it back to Rebecca to start us off.
Great. So now that you've met us, just to quickly introduce you to ourselves, Baker & Bloom Education Center, and what we do. So our guiding principle is around the 4-leaf approach. Get that next slide. There we go. So these 4 leaves are really what we just, as a community, decided was what was really important to help our students grow, both not only academically, but also as learners themselves. So these 4 leaves pop up not only in the way we interact with our students, but also, of course, in our curriculum and our online classes. One of our other big guiding principles is what we call creative literacy. So next slide, please. And this is an overarching philosophy that we bring into any of our classes that we have. And this is my definition of creative literacy. And I was trying to be creative as I was showing what it is. But I define creative literacy as a flexible mindset that you can use to approach any problem and to think laterally around what you're doing, and then have the skills to express your thoughts and your process. So that creative literacy comes into all of our different programs. So next, please. In our primary program, this is our keystone program that we have, the Inspired Reader and Writer. I'll be talking about this a lot more in depth tomorrow evening if you guys want to come back tomorrow at 6. But really, it's designed to be a one-stop shop for all of those key thinking, language, reading, and writing skills for every grade level throughout the primary. We also have other programs, as well as creative writing, and that inspires STEM and public speaking. So bringing in that creative literacy into every literacy that's out there. As Min was saying earlier, next we also have the kind of more traditional academic things, including admissions, test prep, and that academic coaching. So that academic coaching is that one-on-one direction for really what the kids need in that moment, which we'll be talking a little bit more about later on. And as Min mentioned earlier, our new exciting program is we are helping develop a new primary and secondary program, which we are currently calling the Bloom Innovation Program, but it will be Bloom Academy once it moves to its full site next year. So now to get into why we're all actually here, right? So the point of our talk today is a couple things. So one, to kind of lay that groundwork of what everyone is responsible for, to give you guys some top tips that you can actually take into practice straight away. And then to share with you a little bit about our online pedagogy and what we've done to help this transition into this online learning community that we are joyfully entering. So to start off with everyone's roles, as an educator and as a trainer, I always find it really, really important to have that common understanding of what everyone is responsible for. So we're going to first start off with teachers. So us as the teachers, what we promise to do. And that first one is to meet every kid where they are. So in the primary program, as well as the secondary, we always use different diagnostic assessments to figure out where the kids are in the different developmental continua and help them grow along that those different areas. Next, of course, we want to make sure that we're having some fun, that we're challenging our students, we're motivating them. And we're doing that through the materials that we've shared, either with you, the parents, or directly with the students, depending on the age of the kids. And of course that we're motivating our students to learn and be excited about learning. One of the big ones is to be really clear, as we are now, with our expectations. So making sure that our instructions, our resources, that we're helping you have all of the tools you need to successfully set up that home learning environment. And this is a big one. So making sure that we provide regular feedback to not only our learners on what they've accomplished and what their next goals are, but also for you as parents. So you're getting a clearer picture of exactly where your kids are in these different domains and content areas, and what we're doing to help support their development, and also what you guys at home can be doing. This is a big one. So our curriculum is very much embedded in that child's developmental needs. So looking at all of those different areas, their language, reading, writing, social, emotional, all of that. But making sure that it's meaningful, because especially when you're doing it through a screen, if it doesn't make sense to the kids and it doesn't connect with their lives, they're not going to be engaged. And switching gears to look at the students. So really we've got this triangle of us involved. There's us as teachers, there's the learners, and then of course you guys as parents. So to talk about your kiddos. So the first thing is for them to really be motivated, to be excited, and to always try their best. And the way that we can instill that in them is all of those things that we as teachers are responsible for, but helping them find that inner drive. Of course, we expect everyone to work together positively and respectfully. One of the things that we've been working really hard with, as particularly I can speak about the primary team in particular, is taking our Baker and Bloom guiding principles, so those 7 words that we use across all of our classes, and turning them into a digital format, so that we're creating that safe, responsible, respectful community, but online. Obviously, this one's quite obvious, be there on time, be ready to participate. And again, that's part of when we're setting up that classroom environment. We're really clear with students. What do we want you to do with your camera? What do we want you to do with when you're muting or unmuting? All of that. And this is a big one. So being responsible for their learning. And this comes out a lot in that sort of social emotional piece that we embed into our learning. We as teachers are doing so much, you as parents are doing so much, but we need the kids to be responsible for their learning. And that's a big one. And this is particularly important with a lot of the shifts that have been going on and all of these changes, that kids need to be able to feel that they're in a safe environment. So whether that's sharing it through a screen with us, being able to chat with the teacher through the chat box or email for the older kids, and of course being able to share with you guys, but that they know that whatever their feelings are, it's okay, but they need to let us know what they are. And again, a pretty obvious one, but again, that's part of the clear expectations. Hey guys, we want you to do what we've asked you to do. And we're going to use that positive motivation to keep them going and that positive feedback. But moving the mirror to you guys as parents and caregivers, one of the big ones that you can do as parents is to really focus on that positive growth mindset language. And I know these are words that kind of get thrown around a lot, and I know when we're tired or we're frustrated, there are other things going on, that sometimes can be the first one to go. But I think this is one of the ones that both as educators and as parents, we need to make sure we really hold on to, that we're focusing on the things that the kids have done well. Hey, you've adapted really well to these online lessons. You're talking to your teacher, you're doing the work, not focusing on what they haven't done or what they're not doing well yet. So helping them with that schedule. One of the really great things about this transition to online is it gives kids the opportunity to really grow their own agency and their own independence and responsibility. But of course, they need support to get there. So having that schedule printed out, ready for them, they're at their work area where they can see, oh, it's 10 o'clock, this is what I'm supposed to do. Or now it's 4 o'clock, it's time for me to log in with my Baker and Bloom tutor. This is where I go to do that. So they've got the tools that they need. Of course, monitoring their engagement and progress. So checking in with your students at the end of every, coaching session or class. What did you learn? What's going on? Oh, I saw on Seesaw that your teacher had posted this. Why didn't you tell me about it? And part of that checking in on progress is using specific questions. Because a lot of times if you just ask your kid, oh, how did today go? What did you learn? You're going to get good, I don't know, something. But if you use really specific questions, what new reading strategy did you learn with your coach? Or which topic were you writing about? Were you writing nonfiction or fiction? Was it persuasive or descriptive? And if you use those specific questions, you're going to get specific information. And keeping those lines of communication open between the teachers and yourself. So if there's ever any issues, concerns, email us, let us know, hey, I saw this happening, or hey, this is happening at school. Can we incorporate that into our sessions? Because we really are a team in this. So the more we're keeping those lines of communication open, the better able we are to support each kid. And I know this one's really hard, but letting them, as much as possible, work independently. So again, you want to help them get there. You're not just going to say, hey, you're doing everything online, off you go, but help them get that schedule, help them with the reminders. You can use timers if they need more of a time structure to their afternoons and evenings, but helping them have the tools so that they're then able to work independently and flourish. And this is something that Min will talk more specifically about later on, but just kind of being aware of what's going on around the session. And you know your kids, if you know that they need a quiet space, make sure that they have that quiet time. Make sure that you're not cooking dinner or whatever else might be going on, or that they're in a place where you can at least shut the door and they can focus a little bit more. And again, those open lines of communication are so important. And that's between all three of the parts of the triangle. Yeah, so here's one of the big ones. So I think, I say this to parents again and again, your biggest role as parents is to be the parent and to make sure that your kids' well-being and development is being supported. The teaching, that's our job. Right? And I know right now you guys as parents are having to step into that role a little bit more than you normally do, but you still want to maintain that primary role as their parent, as someone who's helping them develop and regulate their emotions and all of those things. So some of the things you can do, create a schedule. Kids really like consistency. They like knowing what's going on. They like knowing what's happening, especially in a world right now where it's hard to have things be consistent. If we can at least give them a daily schedule that includes the suggestions that school has shared with you, and then whatever other classes they might be doing in the afternoon, but also build in all those other things that they need so they know what they're doing throughout the day. Of course, maintaining that physical movement and social interaction. That was one of the really interesting things I saw this past spring when we had this huge shift to primarily online learning. When the kids came back in person, these were two areas where I saw quite significant stagnation in their development, I should say. So making sure that you've got that physical movement time. I know in Hong Kong space is limited, but finding those places where they can go and play, they can play with each other, other kids are building, whatever it might be. Again, making sure that those meal times are regular. This is something that schools sort of naturally help us with, right? You always have snack and lunch at the same time. You then have a snack when you come home or whatever it might be. But making sure you have that daily schedule that builds these things in so that you're ensuring that they happen. And sleep is really, really important. And this is something I think I talk about with kids all the time. I always ask them, hey, do you know how many hours a night you probably need to be sleeping? And every time I've asked a kid, they've always well underguessed what it really is. So kids need at least 10 hours of sleep. And as they're moving up into those teenage years, research is showing it really sometimes is 12 or even a little bit more. So making sure that you give them as much time to sleep and grow as they can. This is another really big one. So and that's part of setting up that routine. So making sure they have that workspace. All of the materials are there. They've got their schedule, they've got their device, whatever it is that they need, everything's there ready for them to go. And they're not having to search for everything every time they start a new session. So to give you guys a few top tips, we'll go through the different areas, but these are just some kind of simple practical things that you can do in well-being. So we'll start there because I always like to start with well-being because I think it really is, it's the foundation of everything, right? If we're happy and we're healthy and everything, then we're ready to learn. And one of the biggest ones I think right now is just letting kids know it's okay to feel whatever it is you're feeling. If you're frustrated because you can't see your friends, or you're tired because the class was really hard, or whatever it might be, but just letting them know feelings are okay, whatever they are. And helping with that emotional piece. And I know different places are sharing different resources out there, but if you ever feel like your kid is really struggling with that emotional regulation, there's supports out there that you can find to help them with that. Routines are really, really important, particularly during those weekdays. So as much as possible, help them with establish those routines, because that gives kids a sense of security in what they're doing. Again, there's that social aspect, right? So we as human beings, we are social creatures. We need to be around other people. And particularly with kids and teenagers and people who are still growing socially, they need to be around other people of their same age. So finding those opportunities for them to continue those social connections is really important. Yeah, again, so making sure that they're really got the time to move, play, take those brain breaks, teach them how to do some yoga, whatever it might be, but really keeping up with that gross motor skill development. And of course, last but not least, and again, this comes back to your primary role as parents. Your job is you are the parent. You're there to help them feel supported. It's our job to help them learn. And it's your job to help make sure that they feel supported in every way, whatever they need at that time. So now to move into some of the content specific areas. So with that Inspired Reader and Writer, which I mentioned earlier is our keystone program in the primary, one of the biggest things you guys can do as parents is to talk to your kids. And not just talk at them, but actually have a conversation with them. If you feel that it's age appropriate, you can talk about some of the things that are happening in the news or in daily events. If they're on the younger side, just talk about, the fruits in the grocery store or the bus that you're taking, whatever it might be, but keeping that conversation going with them. Again, building routines. And one of the big ones for reading is building in that shared reading time. So really, as long as your kids will let you read to them, do it. If they're even in secondary and they will let you read to them, I say go for it. Of course, as they get older, they don't always want to sit and read with mom or dad or whoever it might be. But some of the things you can do is you can have a shared reading time. Everyone in the family for 20 minutes, we all have our books and we all sit down and read together. Building in that modeling piece. Another thing that you can do, of course, is use some of the audiobooks as they get a little bit older. This one's really, really important. And I think this is something, another one of the great silver linings of moving education online is that you as parents get to see the huge process we go through when we're learning these different skills around reading and writing. And whereas before, a lot of times you would see the final product. You wouldn't necessarily understand all of the mini lessons and the revisions and the strategies and the skills that went into building those final projects. So I think one of the great things that you guys can do as parents is help them value that process, value the skills that they're learning, not that final product that they've created, because that's not what's important. It's the routine or the process. Yeah, so again, that daily reading time as a family. So with first graders, by the end of first grade, you want to be getting close to about 20 minutes of that sustained reading time. That might be you reading to them. It might be them reading the book again. As you move up into primary, you really want to be looking more for 30 to 40 minutes a day. And STEM, right? And this is one of the great things about STEM is you can do it anywhere, right? Math is everywhere. If you have 4-year-olds, count the stairs as you walk up them. If you have older kids, they can build projects at home and then learn the math as they're doing the projects. Math really is everywhere. Yeah, so one of the big things, again, valuing that skill and that process is really thinking about the critical thinking and the mathematical thinking. So there's lots of different games, different things that you could play to help build those thinking skills versus just the knowledge that you're trying to impart. This is really, really important, that independence and creativity. And one thing you can do is just have a huge box of random materials, cardboard boxes, tape, scissors, scratch paper, pencils, whatever it might be, and just let them build something. Use their hands. Of course, if they're really little, help them with the cutting and all of that, but just let them go crazy with their creativity. This is another big one, and that really is about valuing that process. So this is something that you actually see in our STEM video that Min will share later. Even when we're talking about multiplication, there's so many ways to get at figuring out what the answer of 4 times 4 is. So value that process. And if they're able to explain to you in a different way or show you how they got that answer, that's what's really important. So encourage that. I already got to this one already, but have all those materials at home. And it doesn't need to be the big fancy kit that you go out and buy. It can just be plastic bottles and cardboard boxes and whatever you have lying around to help them build those things. So to kind of wrap up these sort of top tips. So the big one is create that schedule. And I know it seems kind of obvious, and I know sticking to it can be hard, but the more consistency you build into their daily routines, the better off they will be, and the more capable they will be of building that independence. That consistency is really important. Always have that same space where they go, where all of their materials are there. Help them be responsible. So create that schedule, create that checklist. Of course, keep those open lines of communication. And the biggest one, praise what they've done, because they're doing a wonderful, wonderful job with this transition, and we need to let them know that. So thank you, guys. I will now hand it over to my co-host.
All right, Rebecca, thank you so much for that. I hope you all enjoyed listening to Rebecca's tips. I'm now going to talk a little bit more about technology and getting quite specific, and sometimes some obvious tips, but I think good for all of us to be reminded of them. Before I get started, I would just like to remind everybody that you can type your questions in the chat. So as I have my phone with me, so I'm monitoring the chat. as I go. So if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and happy to answer them as I go or at the end. Also, we will save time for questions. So you're also welcome to unmute yourselves later on, turn on your camera, and have a conversation with us. Share with us any frustrations you might have about online learning, or any burning questions that you may have. So I'm going to pivot a bit and talk about how to make the most of your online class with us at Baker and Bloom. Some of the tips are more universal, but I'll also talk more specifically about what we do at Baker and Bloom, because Rebecca already gave you the sort of the broad strokes of what are the universal best practices for learning online. So I'll be a bit more specific about Baker and Bloom. So what we use at Baker and Bloom to teach are Zoom, where we are now. Sometimes, but most of the time we are using Google Meet. And for sharing, for the younger students, we are using Seesaw, and we're using Notion for the secondary. So primary, it's Seesaw, and secondary is Notion. If you don't know what these apps are, please don't worry. But if you have younger ones, you're probably familiar with Seesaw. Notion is a more advanced project management system for the secondary students, because we are so project based. Notion is really good for us, and in particular for students to manage different projects at the same time and to see where they are with those projects and get feedback from teachers. So they will, for example, tell teachers in the system, I'm done with this part, and the teacher will then go in and make comments. Now that we are doing it virtually, students are submitting videos, then teachers are watching the videos and giving students comments. And another way that we share how students are doing is by email. So we'll email you at different times of the class to make sure that you're informed on how the students are doing, but also for you to share with us any concerns that you have, or any suggestions you may have. So you're welcome to be in regular communication with us, and you'll get an email from the teacher before the class starts. So immediately you can be in communication with the teacher. So first, some obvious tech tips. I know these are going to sound really obvious, but from my experience with our summer courses, some parents are still not 100% aware of all of these tech tips. So that's why I am bringing them up now. So first of all, please have fast and stable Wi-Fi. This is so important. If your student's Wi-Fi is not good enough at home, then it's very difficult for them to have a good online learning experience. I have seen students whose Wi-Fi was so weak that when the student was showing the teacher something on the camera, the teacher couldn't really read what was on the paper, because it was so grainy. So please try your best to boost the Wi-Fi connection in your home if it's weak. There's so many things you can do to do in order to accomplish that. You can buy Wi-Fi eggs. You can upgrade your plan. You can yeah. So if you need technical help, feel free to email me. I can brainstorm with you, but I don't want to belabor the point. Some key indicators is 25 megabytes per second is the minimum. Ideally, you have 100 megabytes or 200 megabytes per second. That will make it really secure and fast. And then in terms of the stability, the maximum ping is 50 pings per millisecond. And ideally you have that under 20. If it's under 10, even better. So then it's really stable, but you shouldn't have more than 50 pings per millisecond. And this is really important. Please try to not use a tablet. So please do not have your student use an iPad. Instead, it's better for your student to be on a laptop or a desktop. First of all, they have a bigger screen to look at. So if the teacher is sharing something or if another classmate is sharing something, they have a bigger screen to look at. Also, with the tablet, usually there is no built-in keyboard. So we have one student who couldn't type because he couldn't figure out a way to activate the keyboard on his tablet. Now, he wouldn't have that problem if he's on a laptop or a desktop because those have built-in keyboards. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that you have your students work on a laptop or a desktop and not a tablet. Also, position your students so that the lighting is on their face. That way, I do not have the best lighting in this room, but if that is something for you to consider when positioning your student. I Priority number one is a quiet room. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a student, and she couldn't hear me because her dad was cooking in the kitchen. Hong Kong spaces are very, very small, so you do your best. But if possible, I would say priority number one is a quiet room, and then priority number two is that lighting, because since we are virtual, it is so important that the teacher sees the student, so that the teacher can really read how the student is doing. So that's why we really recommend that all students have the camera on, number one, and number two, that the lighting is not backlit. And the last obvious tech tip is to please make sure your device is plugged in, because of course you don't want the device to all of a sudden die in the middle of the class. Some of the classes run 2 hours, so that's quite a long time, and you want to make sure that you don't have that freak out moment. And when you study with us at Baker and Bloom, after you sign up for the course, you'll get a welcome email at least 24 hours before the class. And you'll get the link to the class. This is very important. So please make sure you have the link from us 24 hours before the class starts. If it's 24 hours before the class starts and you still haven't gotten the link, please call us or email us, and we'll make sure that we get that link to you. And then the teacher will also make sure that you get personalized feedback about your individual student. So we will give you, for the fall and spring modules, we will give you weekly updates on either Seesaw or on Google Doc, and maybe on Notion as well, if you have secondary students. And then um, you will also get cumulative feedback at the end of each module. So longer, more summative feedback at the end of each module. And each semester we have two modules. So we have fall module A and fall module B, spring module A and spring module B. And then we also have a half-hour conference that we will offer to you at the end of each module. So that's a one-on-one between you and the teacher, and that's half hour. We hope you take that conference opportunity, because I heard from Rebecca that not all parents take that half hour with the teacher, but I highly recommend it because it's an opportunity for you to get to know how your student is doing better, and then to understand what's the best next step in your child's development.
And Min, just to
And
jump in, sorry to interrupt
go
really
ahead,
quick.
Rebecca.
Yeah, but just to jump off of that, one thing I would really like to say, I think one of the great things about our feedback versus what you might get from the school is that all of our sessions, the max cap we'll have for a group is 6, and that's for the older kids. For those younger kids, it really is 4 or less, or of course, if it's coaching, it's one-on-one. So we really get to know your kids, and we'll see all those little things that a classroom teacher might miss. So yeah, thank you, Min. Sorry to interrupt there.
No, please interrupt me as much as you like, Rebecca. Every time I'm sure it's with a good point. Yeah, absolutely. I think that because of our class size, and often it's never 6. I have, the whole summer, I only saw one, and I observed all the classes. I only saw one class with 6 students. Often it's with fewer, 2 or 3 or 4 students. So the teacher will really get to know your students super, super well. I just saw that in the chat. I was not doing a good job of monitoring. That there are two questions. One is, would you suggest to connect the laptop to a TV or a larger monitor? I think sure, absolutely. That way, the student really is able to see everything in a big screen, as long as your Wi-Fi connection is strong enough to support that, so that it's not grainy when you put it onto the TV or a larger screen. And as long as, I'm assuming, if it's a TV, you're in the living room, and that there's not cooking in the kitchen or a dog barking, minimizing that background noise is really key. And then I was also asked, is an iPad Pro with a Magic Keyboard be okay? Yes, that is of course okay, because that's a very strong device, and if you have a separate keyboard to the iPad, then I think that's good. For me, I would still prefer a student on a laptop because I'm quite traditional that way. But if you have a Magic Keyboard, I think that's perfectly fine, and you have something that allows the iPad to stand in a stable manner, that's perfectly fine. And then Kim is asking, for younger learners, they seldom Zoom with a laptop, but need to work on pencil and paper. How to set up two angles, one on the face and one on the desktop. Wow, Kim, that's a great question. I wish more parents would ask this question. So this is something we've been asking ourselves, because we really wish that for the kindergarten and the primary teachers, they really want to see what the kids are doing. So not just their face, but what they are doing. And we can't ask the students to look at the camera and point the camera down at their work. So what I would suggest for that is, if possible, then you have the laptop camera, which is pointing at the face. And then you can also have a phone or a tablet, that is connected only to the camera, but not the sound. Because you have two devices connected to the sound, you're going to get this awful echo. So definitely you can have two devices connected, and one is pointed to the work, and the other is pointed towards to the face. That way, that's very, very much ideal for us as a teacher, because we can see both the student's face and their work. Great question, Kim, and welcome more questions in the chat. All right, so I already reiterated how important it is that you know that you have the link 24 hours in advance. Every time we begin a new class, Monday morning, we get many, many phone calls in our office. Parents cannot find the link. So as much as possible, please try to be organized about getting the link from us in advance. Make sure you know where the link is. I can imagine, as a parent, if your student has multiple tutors and they have their own school, they're probably going to have multiple links. So it's a headache for parents. I know it's a headache for me too. So what I would suggest is that you, as soon as you get a link from any of your tutors or the school, put it into a Google Sheet or an Excel, put it immediately into that place, so that you have a central bank of all of these links. And that way you're not panicking when the class is starting. That's the last thing you want. It's a horrible way to start the class, and then also you're losing valuable class time. Great. So at BNB, our online promise to you as a parent, these are our online pedagogical commitments. I think many of you know us already, so you know how much care we put into our teaching. All of our teachers are world class. All of our teachers are highly experienced, highly qualified, and we are all committed to interactive project-based teaching. That means that your student is not getting a lecture from us. Your students are working with their hands, working with their fingers, working with their brains. They're highly engaged during our classes, and we're constantly asking them questions. They're constantly producing. So you can see, I'm going to share with you two videos. Even a 4-year-old, he's not just listening to us entertain him, because so much of kindergarten education is edutainment, which is education entertainment. It's playing a video for the kid and having the kid captivated by a cartoon. But for us, that's not, we know that that's not the best way for the student to learn. It's not passive learning, it's active learning. So we want the kids to work with their hands. And I'll show you how one of our students, a 4-year-old, is working very actively on producing something with using manipulatives. And then for the upper video, it's with 6th and 7th graders. They are designing solutions to an imagined problem, and they're producing amazing work, even virtually. So we are not going to, in any way, um, uh, you know, take back any of that interactive project-based learning. Our students, even though we're learning online, we're going to be very, very engaged. Um, and we've already mentioned this, we're going to give you quality personalized feedback as parents, but we're also going to, I think even more importantly, we're giving students real time, so that is synchronous, real time feedback every class. They're getting tons and tons of feedback from their teachers. And this is possible because we are so small size. So it's either one-on-one like the 4-year-old, it's one-on-two like the example above, or up to 6, but often fewer. And we're giving them quality feedback asynchronously as well, meaning that for the older students, for example, they might submit a video of their work, or they might email a document to the teacher, and the teacher will take time outside of class to review the video or the writing, and then give students feedback as afterwards. And we will continue to use hands-on materials like manipulatives and other learning tools. So how that will work is we will share with you what you need to get, or we will send learning kits to you, or have you pick up learning kits from B&B depending on the class. But we definitely want to get our students' hands dirty at all times. And I love this. Our teachers like making sure that the students are feeling good even in the virtual space. So giving students stretch breaks. I saw these really adorable 2nd graders. So I think they were 7 or 8 years old, where the teacher said, "Okay, everybody, let's get out of our chairs, let's get up." And the teacher was getting the students to do different kinds of stretches. They're little ones, they need to get up and move, like Rebecca said. So we're making sure that depending on the age, the older students, they need less of this. Of course, they still need it, but for the younger ones, they need this desperately. And then we make sure that they get these stretch breaks as much as possible. So that is all in terms of my online learning tips. If you have any more questions, please do put them in the chat. Otherwise, I just want to show you our fall offering. So this week is the week between our summer and our fall. So starting next Monday, we're starting our fall semester. And what we offer, this is all that we offer for the fall. First of all, we are doing one-on-one coaching for both primary and secondary students, so even down to the kinders, as you saw with, I'm going to share with you the videos. I forgot. I will do that right now after I introduce this. But we are also offering parents the opportunity to organize private courses. So depending on what you think your student need, you can form a private course, and our teachers will tailor the course to the need. What we see is a lot of parents are coming to us because of the online learning from the schools, are not as effective as the parents would like. So that's why the parents are coming to us for extra support, and often for one-on-one coaching or for private courses. And then we also have our standard inspired reader and writer courses, as well creative writing, academic writing, depending on the age, STEM projects, IGCSE and IB English courses, and test prep, as well as boarding school and college counseling, and inspired Chinese for the little ones. So um, okay, I have a question. So let me answer your question first. How would you encourage more introverted children to engage with online learning, seeing that it is a lot more about showing your presence? Um, Faye, that's a great question. So I think that first of all, one thing that that we can do for introverted students is planning for the presentation. So it's not like a lot of introverted students, they think before they speak, so they don't like to just speak spontaneously, right? They prefer to have more thinking time before they speak. So what we plan into our teaching is thinking time. So we make sure that the for all students, they have that quiet thinking time, whether it's before class in terms of preparation or during class, and then we ask them to share. So I think that thinking time is very, very important for the introverted student. And then it's about creating a safe space where that introverted student does not feel like they are under threat. Then they will feel more safe to speak. And then it's just about encouraging them, as Rebecca said, with a lot of praise, a lot of positivity, especially for the introverted students. We in positive psychology, we say you need to have a 3-to-1 ratio of positive to negative comments. So it's really important for the introverted students that you are just heaping them with praise, so that they feel more confident and motivated to share. And I think that our small size classes definitely helps with the introverted students, because with a smaller class size, you immediately feel it's more intimate, you feel it's safer, it's faster for you to get to know your other classmates. And then if it's one-on-one coaching, then obviously that's the teacher-student relationship. So that's the easiest way to motivate an introverted student.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to share these videos with you now. So this first student, I want to show you how this student is working with manipulatives, and you can see how the teacher has a camera pointed to his example, and then another camera pointed to his face. So this little face up here is the teacher, and then he's coaching the student through the manipulatives. So the student was asked to build a car using Legos, and then now he's counting how many Legos he used to build the car. I'll remind you that he's only 4 years old, and you might think, Min, like, does the 4-year-old, can he do this by himself? No. So of course there's a helper next to him, but the helper is not
How
doing
many?
much.
16. And how many do I have? Yep, and I know that a quick way is that 4 times 4 is 16 plus 1 is 17. Okay? So how many squares are in our big square?
I think it's so cute how he counts.
16.
16. So 4 times 4 equals
16.
Yup. 4 times 4 equals 16. So you learned a lot of multiplication today, and we learned it with Legos and with squares. All right. Well, thank you very much, and I look forward to next time. We do a digital high five. All right.
Oh,
Woohoo. All right. See you next time, Rue.
Bye.
Bye.
it's adorable. I love this interaction with the digital high fives. Like, you're still getting that relationship, teacher-student relationship online. Now, this one is with an older student, and she's presenting a project that she's done. So I think this is a good example of how, even though we're in the virtual space, it's still about student production. It's still about project-based learning and student presentations.
2000. But basically, the problem is that the robots are like tired working in the factory, and they sometimes overheat during summer. Some possible solutions I came up with are ice packs, cooling devices, or like resting areas or lounges. My final idea is a small rectangular box that's cooled with ice, which could be connected to the robots using magnets. So this is the device. You can fill this part with ice, and then like the air would come out here, and these are the magnets. And this is how you can like put it on the robot. The description is a small block with magnets that could be placed anywhere on the robot, and it has a fan that produces air that's cooled by the ice in the box.
All right.
Okay.
Several really cool things about that. First is that you've got the illustrations that show your ideas. Um, Second is that you are thinking about what the robot's problems are. Um, not so great or room for improvement, or what we need to do next is um, you jumped right to one idea, which you did really nicely, but you spent all of your time on one idea. So the question is, what if you decide later that that other idea is cool? Um,
Okay, I'm gonna pause it right there. But what I wanted to show there was, you saw how the students can still be really, really creative and still can focus on creation, and we know that that is the highest level of learning, is when students can produce something on their own. So that's what I'm very proud of there, to see the students' creative work. And this was a design thinking class for creators, young creators. And another thing that I wanted to show there was how you heard the teacher's feedback. So that we know from research that feedback, quality teacher feedback, and the implementation of that feedback from the student is where the most learning happens. So for the student to get this kind of quality feedback time after time, and for them to use it, the key is for them to use it. This is where we can have great learning that happens online. So I saw Rebecca answer the other question we have in the chat already. So I will leave it there. And the last thing I'll say is to encourage you to come to our other talks. Rebecca, do you want to maybe share a little bit about your two talks tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to hear more from me, tomorrow at
We
1
do.
so tomorrow at 1 to 2, it'll be an overview of really the science behind reading and what it looks like, what quality instruction looks like, and what you as parents can be doing to support that at home. And then it's actually kind of a two-part series. So then following on from that, and that 6 o'clock session, I'll be moving more into the stages of reading development. So what it looks like at different ages, and then tying that in with our reader and writer program and showing specifically what we do at the different stages along the way. And then also giving you guys as parents a few tips that you can do to support those different developmental stages.
Great. And then on Wednesday lunchtime, we have Lenore, who is an accomplished writer, talking about developing creativity and critical thinking skills. Then in the evening on Wednesday, we have May, our STEM head, who is a NASA engineer, talking about how your students can be future ready. She is so cool. I highly recommend you join that. Steve, talking about IB English and how to hack IB English. Then Renee, our founder of Baker and Bloom, will talk about internships and projects, how to prepare for the future of learning to learn, as she likes to say, and learning by doing. And then this Friday, very excitingly, we invite all of you to join us to hear about Bloom Academy, our brand new bilingual primary and secondary school that is focused on, project-based learning, positive education, and bilingualism and biculturalism. And on Saturday, it's all about admissions. So noontime, lunchtime, we'll talk about the U.S. college admissions journey. And then after that, immediately after that, we'll talk about boarding schools in the U.S. and U.K. So I really hope that we will be able to see you and your children again at Bacon Bloom soon. I really miss seeing shiny faces in our beautiful space here in Wan Chai. So I can't wait for that day. Until then, we are making the most of virtual learning. So we do believe that students can still 100% be learning a lot and be engaged online. So we hope to see you online for now, but at Baker and Bloom soon. Thank you very much for joining us today. And please do stay in touch with us and get in touch with us if you're interested in any of our fall courses, or if you have any more questions about making the best use of your online course.
Thank
Rebecca,
you.
any last words from you?
No, I was just going to say thank you for logging in on a Monday evening. And yeah, we hope to see you soon. And definitely, if you have any questions, please follow up with us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.